With $427 in her bank account and a debt of 50 million won she never borrowed hanging over her head, Jasmine Chun is running out of time to catch the one flight that might save her life. But at Seoul's Incheon airport, she crashes into a man who refuses to let her go, a Korean mafia boss who sees the fear in her eyes and decides she belongs under his protection, whether she agrees or not. At 23, Jasmine balanced her coursework at Seoul National University with 2 part-time jobs and the constant anxiety of never having quite enough money to feel secure. She was a scholarship student studying international relations, the first person in her family to attend university abroad, carrying the weight of that achievement like a crown and a burden simultaneously. Her natural hair was pulled into long, protective braids that fell past her shoulders, and her warm brown eyes held an intelligence that had gotten her this far despite every obstacle. She was practical, determined, and resourceful. She had survived 3 years in a foreign country on scholarships and sheer willpower. But today, none of that mattered. Today she was being hunted. The threatening messages had started 2 weeks ago. Photos of her walking to class. Screenshots of her class schedule. A simple message in Korean that made her blood freeze. Your debt comes due. 50 million won. You have 14 days. She had stared at the number in confusion and terror. 50 million won was nearly 40,000 American dollars. She had never borrowed money from anyone. She worked, she studied, she kept her head down. The debt made no sense until she confronted her roommate's boyfriend Taemin, watched his face go pale, heard him stammer that he had used her name, her student identification, forged her signature because the loan sharks would not take his information. He was already in debt. He needed just one more loan to pay the others. He swore he would handle it. She would never need to know. But now they knew, and they wanted their money. Incheon International Airport on a Tuesday afternoon was organized chaos. Jasmine moved through the crowds with her backpack clutched tight to her chest, everything she owned compressed into one bag, because she had abandoned her apartment 3 days ago when men started watching her building. Her flight to Los Angeles boarded in less than 3 hours. If she could just make it through security, get on that plane, put an ocean between herself and this nightmare, maybe she could figure out what to do next. Maybe her scholarship program could help. Maybe the embassy. Maybe her grandmother's church could raise money. The possibilities felt thin and desperate, but they were all she had. She checked over her shoulder for the 5th time in as many minutes. 2 men in leather jackets stood near the departure board, scanning the crowd with predatory focus. Her heart hammered against her ribs. They were looking for her. She knew it the way prey knows when it is being stalked. Jasmine turned sharply, heading toward a different security line, trying to blend into a tour group of elderly travelers. Keep moving. Stay in crowds. 3 more hours. Her hands shook as she gripped her boarding pass. The paper was damp with sweat. She glanced backward, checking if the men had seen her change direction. Her foot caught on something. She stumbled forward, arms windmilling, her backpack flying open as she collided hard with an immovable force. Strong hands caught her before she hit the polished airport floor. Her belongings scattered. Pins, her passport, a battered paperback, her phone skittering across the tile. Jasmine looked up, an apology already forming on her lips, and the words died in her throat. The man who had caught her was the most intimidating person she had ever encountered. Late 30s, Korean, dressed in a charcoal suit that was so perfectly tailored it had to cost more than her entire year's tuition. The fabric had the subtle sheen of expensive material, probably Tom Ford or something equally absurd for an airport. His features were sharp and aristocratic, all clean lines and controlled intensity. Dark eyes that missed absolutely nothing studied her with an expression she could not read. His black hair was swept back from his face, and his presence seemed to create a pocket of stillness in the chaos of the terminal. 2 men flanked him, both wearing black suits and earpieces, clearly bodyguards. They had moved instinctively when she collided with their employer, hands going to their waists before they registered she was not a threat. Airport security nearby had straightened unconsciously at the commotion, then relaxed when they saw who was involved, which told her this man commanded respect or fear or both. I am so sorry, Jasmine said, her voice shaking. She tried to pull away from his grip, but his hands remained steady on her arms, keeping her upright. I was not watching where I was going. I apologize. Please, I need to get my things. She dropped to her knees, frantically gathering her scattered belongings, aware that every second she spent here was a second the men in leather jackets might spot her. Her phone had landed face up, the screen still showing her last text message. The threatening message with its accompanying photo of her building entrance. You are being followed. Jasmine froze. The man's voice was quiet, barely above the ambient noise of the terminal, but it carried absolute certainty. She looked up at him, still crouched on the floor, clutching her passport and phone. It was not a question. It was a statement of observed fact. I do not know what you are talking about, she said automatically, the lie tasting bitter. I just need to catch my flight. He crouched down smoothly, picking up her paperback and handing it to her. His movements were controlled and elegant, the gestures of someone who had never been awkward a day in his life. His dark eyes tracked past her to scan the terminal, and she saw his expression harden fractionally. 3 men, he said quietly, still in English that held only the barest trace of an accent. 2 near the departure board in leather jackets. 1 near the coffee stand in a blue windbreaker. They are CO Jungo's people. Lone enforcement. He looked back at her, and those penetrating eyes seemed to strip away every defense. What do you owe? Nothing, Jasmine said, shoving her belongings back into her backpack with shaking hands. It is a mistake. A misunderstanding. I did not borrow anything. She tried to stand, but her legs felt weak. I really need to go. My flight leaves soon. His hand on her elbow was gentle, but absolutely firm. If you walk away from me right now, they will intercept you before you reach security. CO Jungo's men do not operate at Incheon without permission from someone with influence. They paid for access. They are here specifically for you. The words hit her like cold water. Jasmine's carefully maintained composure cracked. How do you know that? She whispered. Who are you? Someone who recognizes a hunting pattern when he sees one. His expression was unreadable. Someone who has experience with men like CO Jungo. Someone who is telling you that running to America will not solve your problem because Jungo has connections in Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York. Debt does not disappear with distance. It follows you. Jasmine felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. This was insane. She was standing in an airport being lectured about loan sharks by a man in a suit that cost more than her life. A man who radiated danger and power and seemed to know exactly what nightmare she was trapped in. Why would you help me? She asked, her voice barely audible. You do not even know me. He studied her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression, something that might have been recognition or memory or pain. When he spoke, his voice was softer. No, he said, but I knew someone like you once. Someone who got tangled in debt that was not hers. Someone who needed help and did not get it in time. He stood, extending his hand to help her up. I am Kang Dae-young, and whether you realize it yet or not, you are under my protection now. Jasmine took his hand because her options had narrowed to exactly one. The moment she touched him, she felt the shift. The men watching from across the terminal noticed. She saw the one in the blue windbreaker take out his phone. The 2 in leather jackets exchanged glances. Kang Dae-young noticed it too. His bodyguards moved closer, flanking them both now. He kept his hand on her elbow, his grip proprietary and protective simultaneously. How much do you owe? He asked again. 50 million won, Jasmine whispered. But I did not borrow it. My roommate's boyfriend used my name. I only found out 2 weeks ago. Dae-jung's expression went cold. 50 million. He shook his head slightly. Jungo inflates the numbers. Creates permanent debtors. At his interest rates, you would never pay it off. You would work for him until you died or he decided to sell you to settle the account. He looked at her directly. Is that what you want? No, she said, the word coming out fierce despite her fear. No, I want to finish my degree. I want to go home for my grandmother's birthday next month. I want my life back. Then you will stay with me, Dae-young said. You will not get on your flight to Los Angeles. You will come to my car, get on my plane, and we will discuss terms. I will eliminate your debt. I will ensure Jungo never contacts you again. But I do not do favors without compensation. You will owe me. The debt will transfer. Do you understand? Jasmine stared at him. This was madness. Trading one dangerous man for another. Accepting help from someone who clearly operated in the same world as the loan sharks hunting her. Every instinct screamed that this was a terrible idea. But the men in leather jackets were moving closer now. And Kang Dae-young stood between her, in them like a wall made of expensive fabric and controlled violence. His bodyguards had positioned themselves to block any approach. Airport security was watching but not intervening, which meant Dae-young had more authority here than she understood. She thought of her grandmother, of the pride in her voice when she called home to report good grades. She thought of her degree, 3 years of work, 1 year left to completion. She thought of running for the rest of her life, always looking over her shoulder, never safe. She looked into Kang Dae-jung's dark eyes and saw certainty, saw danger, saw someone who kept his word even if that word was delivered with steel beneath silk. "What kind of compensation?" Jasmine asked. His smile was slight but held approval. "That," he said, "we will discuss somewhere private. For now, trust that I do not hurt innocent people and I always collect what I am owed. Come with me voluntarily or stay here and see if Jungo's men are willing to risk my displeasure by taking you anyway. Choose quickly. They are 30 seconds from making their move." Jasmine hitched her backpack higher on her shoulder, made the only choice she could. "All right," she said. "I will come with you." Dae-jung's hand tightened on her elbow, just for a moment. Acknowledgement and possession combined. "Good," he said. "Walk beside me. Do not look at them. You belong to me now. They will see it, and they will back down." And as they walked toward the private terminal exit, Kang Dae-jung's bodyguards surrounding them like a moving fortress, Jasmine felt the weight of those words settle over her like a contract signed in invisible ink. "You belong to me now." She did not know if it was salvation or a different kind of trap. She only knew she had just changed the entire trajectory of her life by crashing into a stranger at an airport. And there was no going back. They walked perhaps 20 steps before Jasmine's rational mind reasserted itself over her panic. She stopped abruptly, pulling her arm from Dae-jung's grip. The bodyguards tensed, but he waved them back with a minimal gesture. "Wait," Jasmine said, her voice stronger now that immediate danger had receded slightly. "I cannot just go with you. I do not know you. This is insane." She clutched her backpack straps like a lifeline. "Thank you for your help, for whatever you did back there, but I can handle this myself. I will get on my flight. The problem will be in Korea, not America. I will be safe once I leave." The words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Dae-young simply looked at her, his expression patient in the way of someone waiting for a child to finish a tantrum. The comparison made her angry, which helped burn through some of the fear. "I appreciate your concern," she continued, trying to sound firm and adult, "but I need to go now. My gate is in the opposite direction." She turned to walk away. "Stop." It was one word, delivered quietly, but the command in it froze her mid-step. Jasmine turned back slowly, fighting the instinct to obey, trying to understand why this stranger's voice carried such absolute authority that her body responded before her mind could protest. Dae-young had not moved. His hands were relaxed at his sides. His expression remained calm, but something in his stillness was more threatening than any aggressive posture could have been. "You think running to America solves this," he said, and it was not a question. "You think Seo Jungo will simply accept the loss of 50 million won and let you disappear across the Pacific?" His slight smile held no warmth. "Jungo has business relationships in every major American city with Korean populations. Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, Seattle. He has people who owe him favors. People who will find one scared student for him because the cost of refusing is higher than the cost of compliance." Jasmine's throat tightened. "But I will go to the police. I will explain it was fraud. I have proof I never signed anything. And the police will tell you it is a civil matter," Dae-young replied. "They will suggest you hire a lawyer. They will take a report that goes nowhere because Jungo's operation exists in spaces the police cannot or will not touch. Meanwhile, you will be looking over your shoulder for months, years, never knowing when someone will come to collect." His dark eyes held hers. "Is that the life you want? Constant fear, never feeling safe, abandoning your degree, your future, becoming a fugitive from debt you did not incur." The truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. Jasmine felt her carefully constructed plan crumbling. She had known, deep down, that running would not work. But knowing and accepting were different things. "What do you want from me?" she asked, and hated how small her voice sounded. Dae-young opened his mouth to respond, but his gaze shifted past her. His expression hardened. "They are coming," he said quietly. "Stay behind me." Jasmine turned. The three men who had been watching from different positions in the terminal were now walking directly toward them with clear purpose. Two in leather jackets, one in the blue windbreaker, all with the lean, hungry look of predators who had identified their target. The crowd parted around them instinctively, passengers sensing danger and giving it space. Her heart began hammering again. She took an involuntary step backward, colliding with Daejung's solid presence. His hand came to rest lightly on her shoulder, steadying her. His bodyguards moved smoothly to flank them both, creating a human wall. Kangsi, the lead enforcer, said as he approached, his Korean formal and respectful, but his eyes cold. He was the one in the blue windbreaker, mid-30s, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. We do not wish to cause trouble. We are simply here to collect what is owed. The girl has a debt with our employer. If you would step aside, we will handle our business and be gone. Daejung's posture did not change. He stood relaxed, one hand in his pocket, the other still resting on Jasmine's shoulder. When he spoke, his voice was conversational, almost pleasant. Your employer is Seo Jungo, he said. Not a question. Yes, Kangsi. The enforcer bowed slightly. We work for Junganim. The girl owes 50 million won. We have been authorized to collect payment or the debtor herself for alternative settlement. This is legitimate business. Legitimate, Daejung repeated, and now his smile was sharp as broken glass. Tell me, when did Seo Jungo receive permission to operate enforcement activities at Incheon Airport? This terminal falls under Kim family jurisdiction. Did Jungo file proper tribute for access? The enforcer's confidence flickered. He exchanged glances with his companions. We were told the arrangement was handled, Kangsi. Junganim has an agreement with the Kim family for sole operations. Had, Daejung corrected, his voice going colder. Past tense. Jungo's agreement was revoked 4 weeks ago when he failed to pay proper tribute and attempted to expand into Gangnam without authorization. The Kim family severed the arrangement, which means Jungo has no permission to operate anywhere in Seoul, and certainly not in spaces I personally oversee. His hand tightened fractionally on Jasmine's shoulder. This woman is under Kong family protection as of this moment. Her debt, if it exists, is now my concern. Not Jungo's. Not yours. Mine. The lead enforcer's face went pale. Kangsi, please understand, we are simply following orders. We were told to retrieve the debtor. If we return empty-handed, Jungo will be displeased. Then I suggest you explain to Seo Jungo that his displeasure is significantly less dangerous than mine, Daejung said, and despite the pleasant tone, the threat was absolutely clear. Tell him the girl belongs to me now. Tell him the debt is settled through transfer of obligation. Tell him that if any of his people approach her again, if they so much as look at her on the street, I will consider it a personal insult to the Kong family. And we both know how I handle personal insults. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jasmine could feel the tension radiating from the three enforcers. They were clearly weighing their options, calculating the cost of obedience against the cost of defiance. She noticed airport security watching from a distance, but making no move to intervene. Noticed how other travelers gave their group a wide berth. Noticed how Daejung's bodyguards had positioned themselves to block any sudden movement, hands resting casually near their waistbands in a way that suggested weapons were close at hand. The lead enforcer bowed deeper this time. We will relay your message to Junganim, Kangsi. He gestured to his companions. They stepped back, their postures shifting from aggressive to deferential. We apologize for any inconvenience. We were not informed of the change in circumstances. See that Jungo understands, Daejung said. The next time his people operate without proper clearance, I will not be as understanding. Now leave. They left, simply turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like smoke dissipating. Jasmine watched them go, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. 3 dangerous men who had been hunting her for 2 weeks had simply obeyed and retreated because this stranger told them to. No violence. No police. Just words delivered with absolute certainty of authority. She turned to look at Daejung. Who are you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Really? What kind of businessman makes loan sharks back down with a conversation? Daejung's expression softened fractionally. The kind who operates in the same world they do, he said, but with significantly more resources and reach. He guided her gently but firmly toward the private terminal exit, his bodyguards maintaining their protective formation. Come, we should not remain here. Jungo will receive the message within the hour, and he will not be pleased. I would prefer to have you secured before he decides whether to accept my claim or challenge it. Challenge it, Jasmine repeated numbly. What does that mean? It means there is a small possibility he will attempt to reclaim what he believes is his property despite my warning, Dae-young said. His tone was matter-of-fact, which is why you need to be somewhere he cannot reach. Somewhere under active protection. His private lounge or my estate. Not standing in a public terminal. Wait, Jasmine stopped again, pulling free. Property. You call me property. You told them I belong to you. Her anger was returning, burning through the shock and fear. I am not property. I am not anyone's possession. I did not agree to this. No, Dae-young agreed. You did not. But Jungo's men were 30 seconds from taking you by force, and the only language they understand is ownership and hierarchy. I claimed you as mine because it is the only claim they would respect. He met her eyes steadily. Would you prefer I had let them take you? Let them drag you to Jungo so he could decide whether to extract payment through labor or sale. Because those were your options before I intervened. Jasmine's hands clenched into fists. Her whole body shook with frustrated rage and terror and the awful recognition that he was right. I did not ask you to save me, she said, knowing it was unfair, knowing he had helped when no one else would. No, Dae-young said quietly. You did not ask. You were simply running, hoping the problem would disappear, knowing it would not. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. I am offering you a solution. Not a comfortable one. Not one you would choose under better circumstances. But a real solution that ends this permanently. He paused. Your flight to Los Angeles boards in 2 hours. My private plane leaves in 1. On my plane, there are no passenger manifests, no security theater, no public records. Complete discretion and complete safety. You will be under my protection from the moment you board until this situation is resolved. Or you can go to your gate. Hope Jungo's people do not stop you at security. Hope they do not have someone waiting at LAX. Hope you can hide successfully for however long it takes them to lose interest. Your choice. It was not really a choice. They both knew it. Jasmine looked at this stranger who had inserted himself into her nightmare with decisive authority. This man who made dangerous people disappear with words. This man who dressed like old money and carried himself like royalty and spoke of ownership and protection in the same breath. Every instinct screamed that trusting him was insane, that trading one danger for another was not actually safety. But his eyes, those dark penetrating eyes, held something she had not expected. Not cruelty, not the predatory hunger she had seen in the lone enforcers. Something almost like understanding. Like he had seen this exact scenario play out before and knew exactly how it ended. If I come with you, Jasmine said slowly, if I get on your plane, what do you want in return? People do not eliminate 50 million won debts out of kindness. What is the price? Dae-young smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. That, he said, is the right question. Come with me to the private lounge. We will discuss terms in detail. I promise you will have complete information before making your final decision. But we must go now. Every minute we stand here is another minute Jungo has to decide how to respond. Jasmine hitched her backpack higher on her shoulder. Looked one last time at the departure board showing her flight to Los Angeles and freedom and false safety. Looked at Kang Dae-young and his expensive suit and his bodyguards and his casual command of dangerous situations. Made the only choice available to someone who wanted to survive. Show me to your lounge, she said. Let us discuss your terms. Dae-jung's hand returned to her elbow, proprietary and gentle. As they walked toward the exclusive private terminal access, Jasmine felt the weight of her decision settling into her bones. She had just agreed to enter the world of a man who made criminals bow, had just placed herself under his protection and by extension under his control, had just traded immediate danger for unknown obligation. She did not know if she had been saved or claimed. She only knew that Kang Dae-young had seen her fear, had stepped between her and threat without being asked, and had looked at her like she was worth protecting. For now, that would have to be enough. The private lounge existed in a different world than the main terminal. Dae-young led Jasmine through a discreet door marked only with a small brass plaque, past a desk where the attendant bowed deeply without asking for credentials, and into a space that radiated quiet luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the runways where planes took off in the distance, their departures silent behind thick, soundproofed glass. The furniture was leather and dark wood, expensive without being ostentatious. Fresh orchids sat in crystal vases on side tables. The lighting was soft and warm. Everything about the space whispered exclusivity and money. Jasmine stood just inside the entrance, overwhelmed. This lounge probably required a membership that cost more than her annual tuition. The casual wealth on display made her hyper-aware of her worn backpack, her budget clothing, the 3-year-old phone clutched in her hand. She did not belong in places like this. She belonged in cramped studio apartments and university libraries and diners where she picked up weekend shifts. "Sit," Dae-young said, gesturing to a pair of chairs near the windows. His bodyguards had taken positions by the door, far enough away to provide privacy, but close enough to intervene if needed. "Would you like something to drink? Coffee, tea, water?" "Water is fine," Jasmine said, her throat dry. She sat carefully on the edge of the leather chair, her backpack clutched in her lap like armor. Dae-young poured water from a carafe into 2 glasses, added ice from a silver bucket, and handed her one before settling into the chair opposite. He looked completely at ease, one ankle crossed over his knee, his expensive suit somehow remaining perfectly crisp despite the airport chaos they had just navigated. He sipped his water and studied her with those dark eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. "You are afraid," he observed. "Not a question." "Of course I am afraid," Jasmine said, some of her natural fire returning. "I just agreed to go somewhere private with a stranger who claims to be powerful enough to make loan sharks disappear. I have no idea who you really are or what you want from me. Anyone with sense would be afraid." His slight smile suggested approval. "Good. Fear keeps you cautious. Caution keeps you alive." He set his glass down on the table between them. "Let me remove some of the uncertainty. My name is Kong Dae-young. I run the Kong family operations in Seoul. We control real estate development, shipping logistics, private security services, and several entertainment venues. Some of our business is entirely legitimate. Some exists in spaces the law does not reach or chooses not to examine. I am telling you this directly so you understand exactly who you would be accepting help from." Jasmine's hands tightened on her water glass. "You are saying you are a criminal." "I am saying I operate in both legal and illegal spheres," Dae-young corrected. "I pay taxes on legitimate businesses. I employ hundreds of people in legal ventures. I also maintain control over certain underground markets and provide protection services that police cannot or will not. The distinction matters less than you might think. The important point is that I am not a good man by conventional standards, but I keep my word absolutely, and I protect what is mine with everything I have." "And you want me to be yours," Jasmine said, the words tasting strange. "That is what you told those men. That I belong to you now." Dae-young leaned forward slightly. "I told them that because it was the only claim they would respect. In practical terms, what I am offering is an arrangement. A business transaction with clearly defined terms. Not ownership. Partnership with extremely unequal power dynamics, but partnership nonetheless." "Tell me the terms," Jasmine said. "All of them. I want to know exactly what I am considering." Dae-young nodded once. He pulled out his phone, made 2 quick calls in Korean that Jasmine only partially understood, then set the device on the table between them. When he spoke, his tone shifted to something more formal, almost like he was presenting a contract. "I have already made inquiries regarding your debt," he said. 50 million won is the claimed amount. The actual money Taemin borrowed was 20 million. The rest is inflated interest and fabricated fees. Standard practice for Jungko's operation. They create debts that can never be repaid, turning borrowers into permanent assets. Your roommate's boyfriend will be in debt to Jungko for the rest of his life unless someone intervenes. "And you are going to intervene," Jasmine said. "I am going to eliminate the entire debt," Dae-young confirmed. "All 50 million won. I will ensure CO Jungko accepts the settlement and never contacts you again. I will also ensure Taemin's debt is cleared, since his financial situation is what created this problem for you. The total cost to me will be approximately 65 million won when I factor in the price Jungko will demand for releasing claims on 2 debtors. That is roughly 48,000 American dollars. Jasmine felt dizzy. That is an insane amount of money to spend on a stranger. "Yes," Dae-young agreed. "Which is why I require compensation." He settled back in his chair. Here are my terms. I will eliminate your debt completely. I will provide you with secure living arrangements on my estate in Songbukdong, a private guest house with 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, and complete privacy. I will continue to fund your education, including full tuition coverage for your final year at Seoul National University, plus a monthly stipend of 2 million won for living expenses. I will guarantee your physical safety from any threats, foreign or domestic, for the duration of our arrangement. What do you want in return? Jasmine asked, though part of her did not want to hear the answer. You will live on my property for the next 18 months until your graduation, Daeyoung said. You will act as my personal cultural consultant and English tutor. Many of my business negotiations involve American companies. I need someone who understands both Korean and American business culture, someone who can help me navigate the nuances of contracts and social expectations. You will review documents, attend select meetings as translator and cultural advisor, and help me understand context I might otherwise miss. That sounds almost legitimate, Jasmine said carefully. Because it is, Daeyoung replied. I genuinely need those services. But there are additional requirements. You will accompany me to selected social events as needed. Business dinners, charity functions, occasions where having an educated American companion provides social advantage. You will maintain absolute discretion regarding anything you see or hear related to my business affairs. You will not discuss my activities with anyone outside my organization. You will demonstrate unwavering loyalty, and you will report only to me. No one else in my organization will have authority over you. Jasmine absorbed this, her mind racing. And if I refuse? If I decide after a month that I want out of this arrangement? Daejeong's expression hardened slightly. Then the protection ends. The debt returns, now to me rather than Jungo, and you will be responsible for repayment with interest. I will not pursue you violently, but I will expect my money returned. Additionally, if you betray my trust, if you disclose confidential information or cooperate with authorities or rival organizations, the consequences will be severe. I do not hurt innocent people, but betrayal removes innocence. Do you understand? The threat was clear despite the measured tone. Jasmine understood perfectly. This was not actually a negotiation. It was an offer with fixed terms. Accept and be protected, fed, housed, educated. Refuse and face the original nightmare with no help coming. What happens after 18 months? She asked. When I graduate, you will receive a completion bonus of 100,000 American dollars, Daeyoung said. I will provide letters of recommendation for any employment you seek. I will assist in securing work visas or positions anywhere in the world you wish to go. And the arrangement will end cleanly. You will owe me nothing beyond the discretion agreement, which will remain in force permanently. You never speak of what you saw or learned while under my protection. In exchange, you walk away with your degree, significant savings, and a future of your choosing. It sounded too good to be true. Jasmine searched his face for deception and found only calm certainty. Why, she asked. Why offer this? You could just pay my debt and send me away. Why bring me into your home? Why invest this much in a random student you do not know? Daeyoung was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer, and something painful flickered in his eyes. I had a younger sister, he said. Jimin. She was brilliant. She won a scholarship to study art in Paris. She was talented and kind and saw beauty in everything. He paused. She met a man there who seemed charming. He was not. He was a con artist who targeted foreign students. He got her involved in a debt scheme, forged her name on documents, created obligations she never agreed to. By the time she contacted me for help, she was already in too deep. She owed money to dangerous people. Jasmine's chest tightened. What happened to her? I was too slow, Daeyoung said, and the flatness of his tone could not hide the pain beneath. Too focused on business expansion here in Seoul. I assumed she could handle it. I sent money, but not enough attention. Not enough urgency. The people she owed decided to make an example. They killed her when she could not pay. Made it look like suicide. I found out 3 days later, after they had already cremated her body. I could not even bring her home properly. I am so sorry, Jasmine whispered. I tell you this so you understand my motivation, Daeyoung continued. When I saw you in that airport, terrified, being hunted for debt you did not incur, I saw Jimin. I told myself I was making a rational business decision, that I genuinely need a cultural consultant. that bringing you into my household serves practical purposes. His eyes met hers. But the truth is simpler. I could not save my sister. But I can save you. And I will not make the same mistake twice. The raw honesty shook something loose in Jasmine's chest. This dangerous man with his expensive suit and his criminal empire had just revealed a wound that clearly still bled, had shown her the human beneath the intimidating exterior. She looked down at her hands, at her cheap phone with its cracked screen, at the backpack containing everything she owned. Thought about the life she had been living. Constant financial stress. 2 jobs plus full course load. Never enough money to feel secure. Never enough time to actually enjoy being young. And now this nightmare of debt and men hunting her through airports. Dae-young was offering her safety. Education fully funded. Time to focus on her studies. $100,000 at the end. The price was living in his world, seeing things she probably should not see, maintaining loyalty to someone who operated outside the law. The price was trading her independence for protection. The price was becoming part of his life in a way that felt dangerously intimate despite the business framing. She thought about her grandmother, who had mortgaged her house to help pay for Jasmine's first year abroad. About the pride in her voice when Jasmine called with good news. About the dreams deferred and the opportunities that would vanish if she became a fugitive. She looked at Kang Dae-young and saw danger. Saw power. Saw someone who kept his promises even when those promises required violence. But she also saw someone who had failed to save his sister and was trying to make amends for years too late with a stranger who reminded him of that failure. Maybe it was a cage, but it was a gilded cage that led somewhere. Better than the cage of debt and fear she was currently trapped in. Jasmine set down her water glass, met his eyes directly. I accept your terms, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I will live on your property. I will work as your cultural consultant. I will maintain discretion and loyalty. I will stay for 18 months until graduation. Dae-jung's expression shifted, something that might have been relief crossing his features. You are certain. Once you agree, there is no backing out without consequences. I understand, Jasmine said. I am choosing the cage I can survive. At least your cage has an exit door at the end. His slight smile held approval and something darker. Good. Honesty serves us both better than pretense. He stood, extended his hand. Then we have an agreement, Jasmine-chun. Welcome to the Kang family protection. She stood and shook his hand. His grip was firm and warm, and somehow made the surreal situation feel real. She had just agreed to move into a mafia boss's home, had just traded freedom for safety, had just changed the entire course of her life. My plane leaves in 45 minutes, Dae-young said, releasing her hand but maintaining eye contact. I will have your belongings retrieved from your previous apartment and delivered to the estate. You will not need to return there. From this moment forward, you are under my protection, and anyone who threatens you threatens me. Do you have any questions before we depart? Just one, Jasmine said. Do you actually need a cultural consultant, or was that entirely an excuse to justify this arrangement? Dae-jung's smile was genuine this time. I genuinely need the consultant. The fact that hiring you also allows me to save someone who reminds me of my sister is simply an acceptable coincidence. He gestured toward the door. Come, let me show you what safety looks like when you have the resources to enforce it absolutely. Jasmine shouldered her backpack and followed Kang Dae-young toward a future she could not have imagined when she woke up that morning. She was terrified. She was relieved. She was stepping into the unknown with a dangerous man who had promised to protect her. She told herself it was the smart choice. The only choice. She tried not to think about how his hand on her shoulder had felt both claiming and comforting. Tried not to wonder what it meant that she had trusted him enough to say yes. The moment Jasmine accepted his terms, Dae-young made 3 phone calls in rapid Korean. His tone shifted depending on who answered. Crisp and commanding for the first. Almost gentle for the second. Cold and final for the third. She caught enough words to understand he was arranging her debt elimination, organizing retrieval of her belongings, and informing someone named Seo Jungo that the matter was closed and any further contact would be considered a declaration of war. Within 15 minutes, her entire life had been reorganized. The debt that had haunted her for 2 weeks simply ceased to exist. Her few possessions were being collected from the apartment she would never see again. Her flight to Los Angeles would depart without her. She was no longer a student struggling to survive in a foreign country. She was under the protection of the Kong family, whatever that actually meant. Come, Dae-young said, rising smoothly from his chair. My plane is ready. They left the private lounge through a different door than they had entered, this one leading directly onto the tarmac. A sleek black car waited, engine running. The bodyguards opened doors, and Jasmine found herself sliding into leather seats that were softer than her bed had been. Dae-young settled beside her, and they drove across the airport grounds toward a section she had never known existed. Private hangars. Jets that belonged to individuals rather than airlines. A world where normal rules simply did not apply. The plane was smaller than commercial aircraft, but infinitely more luxurious. Jasmine stopped at the stairs leading up, overwhelmed. The exterior was glossy black with subtle silver accents. Through the open door, she could see cream leather seats, polished wood trim, lighting that looked like it belonged in an expensive restaurant rather than an aircraft. This is yours, she said, and it was not really a question. Yes, Dae-young confirmed. More practical than commercial travel when schedules are unpredictable and privacy is essential. He gestured for her to board. After you. The interior was obscene. 8 seats that looked more like recliners, each with its own table and reading light. A full bar with crystal decanters. Cream carpeting that her worn sneakers felt wrong walking across. Toward the back, a door that presumably led to a bedroom because apparently that was normal for private planes. Everything was pristine and expensive and utterly foreign to her experience. Jasmine sank into one of the leather seats, clutching her backpack like a talisman connecting her to reality. Dae-young sat across from her, immediately opening a laptop and beginning to work as if this were completely routine. For him, it was. This was his normal. Private planes and bodyguards and the ability to make problems disappear with phone calls. The flight itself was short, barely an hour. Dae-young worked steadily, occasionally pointing out landmarks through the window. There is Namsan Tower. That is the Han River cutting through the city. His tone was almost educational, like a tour guide showing off his territory. Jasmine watched Seoul spread out below them, the massive city where she had lived for 3 years suddenly looking different when viewed from this height, from this context of wealth and power. They landed at a smaller airport, were met by another black car, and drove through neighborhoods that grew progressively more exclusive. The buildings became larger, set further from the street behind walls and gates. Trees lined the roads. Everything was quiet and manicured and spoke of old money. Songbukdong is one of Seoul's most prestigious neighborhoods, Dae-young explained as they turned onto a street that looked more like a private road. Many cultural properties here. Traditional architecture preserved alongside modern construction. Very secure. Very private. The car stopped at a gate that looked like it belonged to a fortress. High stone walls, cameras visible at regular intervals, guards in a small structure who bowed deeply as the gate swung open automatically. They drove up a winding path through landscaped gardens, traditional Korean aesthetic mixed with contemporary design. Jasmine saw koi ponds, carefully pruned trees, stone lanterns, all maintained with obsessive precision. Then the estate itself came into view and Jasmine's breath caught. The main house was traditional Hanok architecture, all dark wood and curved tile roof, but massive, sprawling across the property like something from a historical drama. Floor-to-ceiling windows mixed with traditional elements. Modern luxury implemented with respect for classical design. It was beautiful and intimidating and utterly beyond anything she had ever experienced. The main house is where I live, Dae-young said as the car stopped. Your residence is separate. He pointed to a smaller structure set back from the main building, also traditional in style, but more modest in scale. Privacy for us both. Full kitchen, 2 bedrooms, everything you need. My head of household will ensure you have appropriate clothing, toiletries, whatever you require. Your belongings from your apartment will arrive tonight. Jasmine followed him through the estate, feeling like she was moving through a dream. Staff members bowed as they passed, their respect genuine rather than performative. Gardens opened into courtyards. Everything was immaculate. The wealth on display was staggering but presented with restraint, the confidence of people who had nothing to prove. Her guest house was perfect. Traditional exterior, modern interior. Polished wood floors, underfloor heating, furniture that managed to be both beautiful and comfortable. The main bedroom had a bed that looked obscenely soft. The kitchen had appliances she did not know how to use. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a private garden with a stone path and a small meditation area. "This is too much," Jasmine said, setting her backpack down carefully on the pristine floor. "This is more space than I have had in 3 years." "You will be here for 18 months, Dae-young said. "You should be comfortable." He showed her how to adjust the heating, where supplies were kept, explained that meals could be delivered from the main house kitchen, or she could cook for herself. His staff would respect her privacy, but were available if needed. "Make yourself at home. Rest today. Tomorrow we will establish your work schedule." Then he left, and Jasmine stood alone in a guest house that was nicer than any place she had ever lived, still struggling to believe any of this was real. The next 3 weeks unfolded in a surreal rhythm that gradually became routine. Mornings, Jasmine attended her classes at Seoul National University like she had always done. But now a driver took her in a luxury sedan instead of her taking the subway. Security followed at a distance, unobtrusive but always present. Her classmates noticed the change, but she offered vague explanations about a new scholarship program. Afternoons, she worked. Dae-young would present her with contracts, business proposals, correspondence with American partners. She would review the English, flag cultural nuances he might miss, explain subtext and implied meanings that direct translation could not capture. The work was genuinely interesting. She learned about real estate development deals, shipping logistics, international trade agreements. Some of it was clearly legitimate business. Some of it existed in grayer areas. She asked no questions about the latter. Evenings, they had dinner together. Sometimes in the main house dining room, sometimes on the terrace overlooking the gardens. He would ask about her day, her classes, her research. She would teach him colloquial English, American idioms, the subtle differences between formal business language and casual conversation. He was a quick study, absorbing information with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. Jasmine found herself looking forward to these dinners. Dae-young was surprisingly easy to talk to when he dropped the cold business demeanor. He read extensively, everything from classical Korean literature to contemporary American fiction. He supported several orphanages and schools, all anonymously. He had opinions on art and philosophy and discussed them with genuine interest rather than pretension. She started to see layers beneath the dangerous exterior. The way he made sure she had her favorite tea stocked in her kitchen without her asking. How he adjusted their dinner schedule when she had a big exam. The small courtesies that suggested he was paying attention to her comfort. It was confusing and unsettling and made the transactional nature of their arrangement feel increasingly inadequate to describe what was developing. One evening in her 4th week, Jasmine left her guest house intending to return a book to Dae-jung's study. The main house was lit beautifully, warm lights spilling from windows. She could see into what she knew was his private office through the glass doors. And she stopped, frozen by what she saw. Dae-young sat behind his desk, but this was not the man who discussed philosophy over dinner. His entire demeanor had changed. Posture rigid, expression cold as winter stone. 3 men stood before him in supplicant positions, heads bowed, bodies radiating fear. She could not hear the conversation through the glass, but she could see Dae-young speak, each word delivered with measured precision. Could see one of the men flinch. Could see another's hands shake. Whatever Dae-young was saying, it was a threat, an absolute promise of consequences. His hand rested on the desk, completely relaxed, but the men before him looked like they were facing execution. One tried to speak, to plead perhaps, and Dae-young cut him off with a single gesture. The finality of it was chilling. Then Dae-jung's gaze shifted. He saw her standing in the garden, watching. Their eyes met through the glass. For one moment she saw him completely unmasked. Cold, ruthless, capable of terrible things. The civilized veneer stripped away to reveal the dangerous reality beneath. Then his expression shifted, smoothed. When he looked back at the 3 men, he said something brief and dismissive. They bowed deeply and fled, practically running from the office. Dae-young stood, straightened his jacket, and walked calmly to the glass doors. He opened them, stepping out into the garden as if nothing unusual had occurred. "Good evening," he said, his tone pleasant. "Did you need something?" Jasmine clutched the book she had been planning to return. "I was just bringing this back," she said, her voice not quite steady. I did not mean to intrude. You are not intruding, Dae-young said. He looked at her carefully, gauging her reaction. You saw that? Yes. He was quiet for a moment, then gestured to a bench in the garden. Sit with me. She should have been afraid. Should have remembered that this man, however kind he was to her, was fundamentally dangerous. But she sat. He settled beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and bergamot. Those men work in one of my shipping operations, Dae-young said. They were stealing, not money, product, selling it privately and keeping the profit. He looked out at the garden. In my world, that is not simply theft. It is betrayal. It demonstrates disloyalty. And disloyalty spreads if not addressed immediately and decisively. What will happen to them? Jasmine asked. They will repay what they stole at triple value, Dae-young said. They will be reassigned to positions where they cannot access valuable inventory. They will spend the next year being watched constantly. If they remain loyal during that probation, they may earn back trust. If they betray me again, the consequences will be severe. His tone was matter-of-fact. This is the reality of my world. Mercy without strength is weakness. Strength without mercy is tyranny. I walked the line between. Jasmine absorbed this. You wanted me to see this, she said slowly. Not right now, but eventually. You wanted me to understand what you really are. I wanted you to understand who you have placed your trust in, Dae-young corrected. Yes, I provide you safety and comfort. Yes, I honor our agreement. But I am not a good man pretending to be dangerous. I am a dangerous man who chooses to be good to certain people. The distinction matters. Why me? Jasmine asked, the question that had been building for weeks finally emerging. Why offer this arrangement to someone you do not know? Your sister died 4 years ago. You have encountered countless people since then. Why did you see me in that airport and decide I was worth saving? Dae-young was silent for so long she thought he would not answer. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. Because you looked at me with fear, but not hatred, he said. Because when I told those men you belonged to me, I saw you prepare to argue even though you were terrified. Because you asked the right questions in the lounge. Because you accepted my terms with your eyes open rather than deluding yourself about what this arrangement means. He turned to look at her directly. And because when I imagine the next 18 months, the thought of you being here, in my home, working beside me, it is the first time in 4 years that I have looked forward to time passing rather than dreading it. The honesty took her breath away. Jasmine met his dark eyes and saw vulnerability there, carefully controlled but present. This powerful, dangerous man who made criminals bow and companies prosper was admitting that she mattered to him, that saving her was not just about his sister, that somewhere in the last 4 weeks, this had become about her specifically. I am not Jimin, Jasmine said softly. No, Dae-young agreed. You are not. You are yourself, strong and intelligent and far more capable than you believe. That is precisely why this matters. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a stray braid behind her ear. His touch was gentle. I could not save my sister. But watching you thrive, watching you finish your degree and build your future, that heals something I thought was permanently broken. Jasmine's heart was pounding. This was crossing a line. This was becoming something beyond a business arrangement. And she was terrified to realize she wanted to cross it. Thank you, she whispered. For saving me. For seeing me. For all of this. Dae-jung's slight smile held warmth she had not seen before. Thank you for trusting me enough to say yes. For staying even after seeing what I am capable of. For not running when you had every reason to. They sat together in the garden as evening deepened into night, something fragile and important forming between them. Jasmine knew she was falling for the man who had claimed her as his. Knew it was dangerous and complicated and entirely against her better judgment. But in that moment, with Dae-young looking at her like she was precious rather than a transaction, she could not bring herself to care about the risks. She was under his protection, but increasingly, she suspected he was under hers as well. And that realization changed everything. 2 months into their arrangement, Jasmine had begun to feel safe. It was a dangerous complacency, the kind that came from weeks of routine without incident. Her grades were excellent, the best they had been in 3 years now that she could focus on studying rather than working multiple jobs. The work with Dae-young was intellectually stimulating, challenging her in ways her coursework did not. Their evening dinners had evolved into the highlight of her day. Conversations ranging from philosophy to current events to shared laughter over cultural misunderstandings. She had stopped checking over her shoulder constantly, stopped flinching at unexpected sounds. The estate felt like a sanctuary, the high walls and watchful security creating a bubble where the outside world could not reach. She had even started thinking of the guest house as home, decorating it with small personal touches, books stacked on tables, her favorite blanket draped over the sofa. The package arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Jasmine was leaving her international law lecture when a student she did not recognize approached her with a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. "Someone asked me to give this to you," the student said, already walking away before Jasmine could ask who. She should have been suspicious immediately, should have taken it straight to Daejung's security team. Instead, she opened it in the library, thinking perhaps it was materials from one of her professors. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Jasmine walking to class, sitting in the library where she was right now, entering a coffee shop, getting into the car that drove her to and from the estate. The photos were recent, taken over the past several weeks. Professional quality, detailed enough that she could see her face clearly in each one. Beneath the photos was a note written in Korean. Her hands trembled as she translated the careful characters. "Debt may be paid, but disrespect has price. Kang Dae-young thinks his name protects what he claims. He is wrong. Some insults require blood to settle. You will learn that borrowed time always comes due. Seo Jungo does not forget." The blood drained from Jasmine's face. The library suddenly felt exposed, every person a potential threat. She shoved the photos and note back into the box, her heart hammering against her ribs. They had been watching her for weeks, following her movements, documenting her routine, learning her patterns. The security Dae-young had provided felt suddenly inadequate against this level of surveillance. She called him immediately. His personal number, the one he had given her for emergencies. He answered on the second ring. "Jasmine," his voice was calm, concerned. "What is wrong?" "I received a package," she said, trying to keep her voice steady and failing. "Photos of me. A note from Seo Jungo. Dae-young, they have been following me for weeks." The silence that followed was more frightening than any response could have been. When he spoke again, his tone had gone cold, the temperature drop almost audible through the phone. "Where are you now?" "University library. Main campus. Do not move. Do not leave the building. I am sending a team now. They will be there in 8 minutes." His voice was clipped, commands being issued. "Stay visible. Stay in crowds. Do you understand?" "Yes," Jasmine whispered. "Good. I will handle this. You are safe. Remember that. You are safe because you are mine and I protect what is mine." The line went dead. Jasmine sat frozen at her library table, clutching the phone, watching the main entrance for threats she could not identify. 8 minutes felt like hours. Other students worked around her, oblivious to the fact that she was being hunted, that men who wanted to hurt her had been close enough to photograph her facial expressions. The security team arrived in 6 minutes. For men in dark suits who moved through the library with quiet efficiency. One approached her table while the others positioned themselves at exits. "Ms. Chun," the man said, his English accented but clear. "Kangxi sent us. We will escort you to the estate now. Please come with us." She gathered her things with shaking hands, left the box of photos for them to collect, and was surrounded by protective bodies as they moved her to an armored vehicle she had not seen before. Bulletproof glass, reinforced doors. The kind of car that suggested serious threats required serious protection. They drove her back to the estate through routes that avoided major roads. Jasmine watched Seoul pass outside the tinted windows and realized how naive she had been, thinking she was safe, thinking Seo Jungo would simply accept his defeat and move on. Dae-young had tried to tell her, had warned her that his world came with dangers. She had not truly believed it until now. Dae-young was waiting when they arrived. He pulled her from the car before it had fully stopped, his hands on her shoulders, his dark eyes scanning her face and body for injuries. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "Did anyone approach you besides the student who delivered the package?" "No," Jasmine said. "I am fine. Just scared." His jaw clenched. "Come inside. We need to talk." He led her not to her guest house, but to his private study in the main house. The room was all dark wood and leather, bookshelves lining the walls, a massive desk that probably cost more than a car. He poured her tea without asking, pressed the cup into her hands, and only then allowed himself to display the fury she could see barely contained beneath his surface calm. Seo Jungo is making a move, Dae-young said, his voice flat. Trying to reclaim face after being publicly overruled 2 months ago. The photos are a message. He knows I claimed you. He is demonstrating that my protection is not absolute, that he can reach you despite my resources. His hands were clenched at his sides. It is a challenge. What does that mean? Jasmine asked, though part of her already knew. It means he will not stop with photos, Dae-young said. He will escalate. Attempt to take you to prove he can. Force me to either retaliate or accept the insult. He is gambling that I care more about avoiding war than protecting one woman. His eyes met hers. He is wrong. The certainty in those words should have comforted her. Instead, they terrified her because they meant violence was coming. Meant people would be hurt or killed because of her existence. Because a man she had never met wanted to settle a score against Dae-young, and she was the available target. What do we do? She whispered. You stay here, Dae-young said. On the estate. Security is being tripled. You will have personal protection at all times, even inside the walls. I have already contacted the university. Your professors will send coursework here. You will not leave the property until this is resolved. For how long? Until I eliminate the threat, Dae-young said simply. Permanently. 3 days passed in tense waiting. Jasmine stayed in her guest house or the main house, always within sight of armed guards. She tried to focus on her studies but found herself staring out windows, jumping at unexpected sounds, unable to shake the feeling of being hunted. Dae-young was different during these days. Colder, more distant. She would catch him on phone calls delivered in rapid Korean, his tone savage. Would see him meeting with groups of men who looked like soldiers more than businessmen. The dangerous man she had glimpsed through the glass doors that first night was now on full display, preparing for war. On the 4th day, Jasmine made the mistake of leaving the estate. Just to the corner store, she told herself. Just for 15 minutes to feel normal. She slipped out while the guards were changing shifts, needing desperately to prove she was not a prisoner. The van pulled up before she made it 3 blocks. 4 men jumped out, moving with professional speed. She saw them coming, tried to run, and was grabbed before she could scream. Hands clamped over her mouth. Arms locked around her torso. She was being lifted, dragged toward the open van door. Then gunfire. Sharp cracks that made her ears ring. Her captors dropped her, diving for cover. A black SUV screeched to a stop between her and the van. Dae-jung's bodyguards poured out, weapons drawn, returning fire. She crawled behind a parked car, hands over her head, mind blank with terror. The fight lasted less than a minute. When silence fell, one of the bodyguards pulled her up gently but firmly, rushed her into the armored SUV, and they were moving before she could process what had happened. She heard shouting behind them, heard sirens in the distance, saw blood on the pavement as they pulled away. They brought her straight to Dae-young. He was in his office, already on the phone, already coordinating response. When he saw her, saw the fear in her eyes and the scraped skin on her palms where she had hit the pavement, something in his expression cracked. He ended his call mid-sentence, crossed to her in 3 strides, pulled her against his chest hard enough that she felt his heart hammering beneath the expensive fabric of his suit. You were supposed to stay here, he said, his voice rough. You were supposed to be safe. I am sorry, Jasmine whispered into his shoulder. I just wanted to feel normal for a few minutes. I did not think they would move so quickly. Jungo just declared war, Dae-young said, pulling back to look at her face, his hands framing her jaw. He attempted to take you in broad daylight. Used armed men. This is not posturing anymore. This is open aggression. He paused, and when he spoke again his voice was ice. I am going to end this tonight. Permanently. What does that mean? She asked, though the answer was written in his eyes. It means I am going to dismantle Seo Jungo's entire operation, Dae-young said. His assets will be seized. His people will scatter. He himself will leave Korea and never return, or he will not leave at all. The choice will be his. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. I told you I protect what is mine. I meant it absolutely. This is because of me, Jasmine said, tears finally coming. People are going to get hurt because he is trying to prove a point about me. No, Dae-young said firmly. This is because Jungo made a choice. He chose to challenge me. He chose to threaten you knowing what it would mean. The consequences are his, not yours. Never blame yourself for the violence of men who see people as property to be taken. He kissed her forehead, gentle despite the fury she could feel vibrating through him, then stepped back. I need to go, he said. This ends tonight. Stay here. Do not leave the main house. Do not open the door for anyone except my head of security. Do you understand? Yes, Jasmine said. Good. He moved toward the door, already making calls, already shifting into the dangerous man who made criminals disappear. Then he paused, looked back. When this is over, we need to talk. About what this arrangement has become. About what you mean to me beyond business terms. Then he was gone, taking 20 armed men with him, and Jasmine was left alone in the vast house with her terror and the awful realization that she was not just afraid for herself anymore. She was terrified something would happen to him. Terrified that while he was out there eliminating threats on her behalf, he would be hurt or killed and she would lose him. That was when she knew. When the truth hit her with devastating clarity. She was in love with Kang Dae-young, the dangerous criminal who had claimed her at an airport. The man who made people bow and businesses prosper with equal ease. The man who had saved her and protected her and looked at her like she was precious. She was in love with him, and he was out there right now risking himself for her safety. And the thought of losing him was more terrifying than anything Seo Jungo could threaten. Jasmine spent the night curled on the sofa in his study, unable to sleep, unable to focus, just waiting. The house was silent except for the distant sounds of security patrols. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Dawn began to break over the gardens. Then she heard vehicles. Multiple cars arriving. She rushed to the window, her heart in her throat. Dae-young climbed out of the lead SUV. He was still wearing his suit, but it was rumpled now. Expensive fabric creased and stained. There was blood on his shirt cuff, dark and unmistakable. His hair was disheveled. His face was remote, cold, the expression of someone who had just done violent things and was still processing them. Jasmine met him in the courtyard. Did not ask what happened. Did not demand details. Just looked at him, at the exhaustion and darkness in his eyes. Is it over? She asked quietly. Yes, Dae-young said. Jungo's operation is dismantled. His assets are being redistributed. His key lieutenants are scattered. He is on a plane to Singapore as we speak with the understanding that if he ever returns to Korea, ever contacts anyone under my protection, he will not see the next sunrise. The threat is eliminated. Permanently. Are you hurt? She asked, reaching for his hand, the one without blood on the cuff. No, he said. But I am not clean either. What I did tonight, it was necessary but it was not gentle. I removed people who would not listen to reason. Made examples. Ensured that everyone in Seoul understands that you are untouchable. His voice was flat, emotionless. This is what I am, Jasmine. This is what protecting you actually requires. She stepped closer, touched his face, felt him flinch slightly at the gentleness. I know what you are, she said. I saw you tonight willing to burn down an entire organization because someone tried to hurt me. I see you, Dae-young. All of you. And I am not afraid. Something in his expression cracked. The cold mask fell away. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, and for the first time she felt him shake. Felt the iron control slip. Felt the man beneath the monster surface, exhausted and relieved and overwhelmed. I could not lose you, he whispered against her hair. When I heard they tried to take you, when I saw you terrified, something in me just broke. I would have destroyed everything, burned the entire city, just to keep you safe. I know, Jasmine whispered back, holding him as tightly as he held her. I know, and I am here, safe, because of you. They stood together in the dawn light, blood-stained and exhausted and alive, and Jasmine knew there was no going back. This was not a business arrangement anymore. This was love, dangerous and complicated and absolutely real. And she was choosing it with open eyes. Jasmine woke on the sofa in Dae-jung's study, covered with a cashmere blanket she did not remember pulling over herself. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and golden, painting the dark wood in shades of amber. She sat up slowly, disoriented, and found Dae-young sitting in the chair across from her, watching her with an expression she had never seen before. He had showered and changed. The blood-stained suit was gone, replaced with simple black pants and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hair was still damp, but it was his eyes that caught her, held her. They were unguarded in a way that made her chest tight. Raw. vulnerable, looking at her like she was something precious and fragile and absolutely necessary. You stayed, he said quietly. I thought you might leave. Go back to your guest house. Put distance between us after seeing what I am capable of. Jasmine pushed the blanket aside, her body stiff from sleeping on the sofa. I had nowhere else I wanted to be, she said, and no desire to be anywhere you were not. Something shifted in his expression. He stood, crossed to her, and knelt beside the sofa so their eyes were level. Jasmine, he said, and just the way he spoke her name made her heart race. We need to talk about what this has become. I know, she whispered. When I made you that offer at the airport, Dae-young continued, his voice low and intense, I told myself it was practical. A business arrangement. I needed a cultural consultant. You needed protection. The terms were clear. 18 months, and then you walk away with your future secured. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. But I have not been honest. Not with you. Not with myself. Jasmine's breath caught. What do you mean? I mean, I have been lying about my motivations since the moment you crashed into me, he said. I told myself I was saving you because of Jimin. Because you reminded me of my sister. Because I needed to make amends for my failure. His dark eyes held hers. But the truth is simpler and far more selfish. From the moment I saw you, terrified but refusing to break, I wanted you. Not as an employee. Not as a project to assuage my guilt. As mine. The possessive certainty in those words sent heat through her. Jasmine's hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palms. You are mine, Dae-young said. And it was not a question or a request, but a statement of absolute fact. I know I have no right to claim you. I know this started as a transaction. I know I am dangerous and you deserve better. But I cannot let you go. The thought of you leaving when the 18 months are up, the thought of you walking away and building a life that does not include me, it makes me want to burn the world down. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against hers. Tell me I am not alone in this. Tell me somewhere in the last 2 months you started feeling what I feel. Jasmine closed her eyes, breathing him in, cedar and bergamot, and something uniquely him. I am terrified, she admitted. Because I fell in love with a mafia boss who makes people disappear and looks at me like I am the only thing in the world that matters. Because I should want to finish my degree and go home and build the safe, normal life I planned. Because everything about this is wrong and dangerous and completely insane. But, he prompted, his voice barely audible. But yes, she opened her eyes to meet his gaze. I am yours. I have been since you stood between me and those men at the airport and refused to let them take me. I am yours, and you are mine, and I do not want to leave when the time comes. I want to stay. The kiss was inevitable. Dae-jung's mouth found hers with desperate intensity, one hand tangled in her braids, the other pulling her closer. Jasmine responded with equal hunger, pouring 2 months of denied attraction and growing love into the contact. He tasted like morning coffee and promises. Felt solid and real and absolutely right despite every logical reason this should be wrong. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dae-young rested his forehead against hers again. I am yours, he said, echo of her words. Broken pieces and all. The criminal and the businessman and the man who failed his sister. All of it. Yours. Forever, Jasmine whispered, testing the word, finding it fit perfectly. Forever, Dae-young agreed. His thumb traced her lower lip. I want to change the terms of our arrangement. Jasmine's heart stuttered. What do you mean? I mean the 18 months is unacceptable, he said. I mean the completion bonus and goodbye is unacceptable. I mean watching you walk away at the end is something I will not survive. His eyes were fierce. I want you to stay. Not as my employee. As my partner. My wife. The woman who stands beside me while I build something better than what I inherited. Are you? Jasmine started, could not quite form the question. Are you asking me to marry you? Dae-young reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. Opened it to reveal a ring that made her breath stop. Black diamond, flawless and striking, set in platinum with smaller diamonds flanking it. Beautiful and unconventional and perfect. I bought this 3 weeks ago, he admitted. When I realized I was in love with you. When I understood that letting you go was not something I could do. I have been carrying it, waiting for the right moment. His slight smile was self-deprecating. Though I imagined something more romantic than the morning after I eliminated a rival organization. This is perfect, Jasmine said, tears streaming down her face now. This is exactly us. Dangerous and beautiful and absolutely right. Then say yes, Daeyoung said. Marry me. Not in 18 months when our arrangement ends, but now. Make it real and permanent. Let me give you my name and my protection and everything I have. Let me wake up every morning knowing you are mine and I am yours. Yes, Jasmine said, the word coming out fierce and certain. Yes, I will marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, the black diamond catching the light, beautiful and striking against her skin. Then he was kissing her again, pulling her down from the sofa and into his lap, holding her like she was the most valuable thing in the world. They talked for hours after that, practical plans emerging between kisses and promises. She would finish her degree, they agreed on that. Her education was important, and Daeyoung would not take it from her. But she would continue living on the estate. Would marry him quietly next month, just a simple legal ceremony, nothing that drew attention. Would gradually take on more responsibility in his legitimate business operations. I am working on transitioning more operations into legal territory, Daeyoung explained as they sat together on the floor of his study, her back against his chest, his arms around her waist. I want to build something our future children will not be ashamed of. An empire that can be inherited without requiring them to become what I am. Children, Jasmine repeated, turning to look at him. We are getting ahead of ourselves. Are we? He asked, completely serious. I see the next 50 years when I look at you. See you finishing your degree and working beside me. See our children growing up in this house. See us growing old together. His hand spread across her stomach. I see everything, Jasmine. And I want all of it. She should have been overwhelmed. Should have needed time to process. Instead, she felt certain. Settled. Like pieces clicking into place. I want that too, she admitted. All of it. The dangerous, beautiful, complicated life with you. The engagement was kept quiet. They told no one outside Daeyoung's most trusted inner circle. Jasmine wore the ring on a chain around her neck while at university, not ready to explain to her classmates or professors how her life had changed so dramatically. But at the estate, she wore it proudly, the black diamond a constant reminder of the future they were building. Her grandmother called 3 weeks later, and Jasmine told her everything. About the debt that was not hers. About the dangerous man who had saved her. About falling in love with someone who existed outside normal rules. Her grandmother was silent for so long Jasmine thought the call had dropped. Then she said, "Baby girl, does he treat you right? Does he make you happy? Does he protect you like you deserve?" "Yes," Jasmine said. "To all of it. Yes." "Then I do not care if he is a criminal or a saint," her grandmother said. "You bring him home to meet me. Let me look this man in the eye and decide if he is worthy of my granddaughter." Daeyoung flew them to Los Angeles 2 weeks later on his private plane. Met Jasmine's grandmother in her small house, with its worn furniture and family photos covering every surface. He bowed respectfully, brought expensive gifts, and then sat at her kitchen table drinking sweet tea while she interrogated him for 2 hours about his intentions, his business, his ability to provide and protect. "You hurt my granddaughter," Jasmine's grandmother said at the end, looking at Daeyoung with eyes that had seen too much hardship to be impressed by wealth alone. "And there is nowhere in this world you will be able to hide from me. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Daeyoung said seriously. "I understand. And I promise you I would die before allowing harm to come to her." Her grandmother studied him for another long moment, then nodded. "Good. Welcome to the family, Kang Daeyoung. Take care of what I am trusting to you." They married the following month. Small ceremony, just family and essential witnesses. Jasmine wore a simple white dress. Daeyoung wore a suit that probably cost more than the entire wedding but looked at her like she was wearing diamonds and gold. When he slid the wedding band onto her finger, when she did the same for him, when they were pronounced husband and wife, Jasmine felt the last piece of her old life click shut and a new one open wide. "Mrs. Kang," Daeyoung said against her lips when they kissed. "Mine. Yours," she agreed. "Forever." 6 months later, Jasmine sat in the garden of their estate, her textbooks spread around her as she studied for finals. Her last semester at Seoul National University. Graduation was 2 months away. The black diamond ring caught the afternoon sunlight. The wedding band nestled against it, a reminder of promises kept. Daeyoung emerged from his study, saw her there, and smiled. That smile that was reserved only for her. The one that softened his dangerous edges and made him look young and almost carefree. He sat beside her on the bench, pulled her close, pressed a kiss to her temple. "How is studying?" he asked. "Good," she said. "Almost done with this degree you saved me for." "We saved you for," he corrected. "You made the choice to accept my help. You chose to trust me. I simply provided the means." Jasmine thought back to that terrified girl in the airport. The one running from debt she did not owe, certain her life was over. The girl who had literally crashed into the most dangerous man in Seoul and somehow found not just safety, but love and a future she never imagined. She had come to Korea to study international relations, to build a career, to make her family proud. She had found all of that. But she had also found a man who saw her fear and decided to be her shield, who looked at her like she was the light in his dark world, who loved her fiercely and protected her absolutely, and was working every day to build something better because she had asked him to. "Thank you," she said, looking up at Daeyoung, "for refusing to let me leave that day, for seeing me, for loving me." "Thank you for crashing into me," he replied, "for saying yes, for staying even when you saw what I am capable of." His hand covered hers, their rings gleaming in the sunlight. "For giving me a reason to build a future instead of just maintaining an empire." They sat together in the garden as afternoon stretched into evening, two people who should never have met, whose worlds should never have collided, who had found each other in the chaos of an airport and decided to build something beautiful from the wreckage. Jasmine was no longer running. She was standing beside her husband, the Mafia boss who had claimed her as his and proven his love through action, not just words. She was building a future that was dangerous and beautiful and absolutely hers. And she had never been happier in her life.